Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Through Thursday. I am your host and realtor, Sharice Scott of Desiree Callender and Associates Realtors. So glad that you can join us today. Our episode today is taking us through the home buying process with two of our most recent clients who have bought homes this year, both families, first time home buyers. One half of the family have lived here, another half is relocating here from out of state. So, some really dynamic stories and dynamic perspectives to share with you all today in terms of what the process is really like when you're inside buying a home, what your expectations are, how they change, how they shift, how different strategies can help you accomplish your goal in the time that you're looking to get it accomplished, and what some of the real life obstacles are that you come against when you're going through the home buying process. So I'm really excited to introduce you to these families today. I think you'll find their information super insightful and something that you can take to heart and keep in mind when you're on your own home buying journey, whether you're a first time home buyer or maybe you're buying a home again for the first time in a long time. We have some folks that haven't sold the home that they live in 20 or 30 years, and now they are new to the home buying market and selling market. So sit back, relax, enjoy this episode today, and I hope you find it a great resource and super insightful. So thanks for tuning in to Talk It Through Thursday. I'm your host, Sharice Callender Scott. You guys are both new home buyers in the year 2020, if you can imagine that. And so I'll let you guys start by just maybe introduce yourself a little bit. Kevin, since you were the first home buyer in this year in March, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you moved from, where you moved to, and your family makeup.
Yeah, sure. So again, my name is Kevin Creppy. My wife, Tavia, and I, we have 3 kids. So, we were in the renting apartment, that whole conundrum, which, as you know, well, now that we are homeowners, owning has definitely been the better financial decision, long-term decision, especially when you think about the amount of money that I always call it throwing it down the drain because it's going into somebody else's pocket every month, and there's no stability there. So prior to connecting with Sharice, I was with another realtor, and I had what you would, I guess, describe as a nightmare home buying process, from the realtor not being experienced, the loan officer not being open and transparent. So, we kind of just like washed our hands with those 2 people and started from scratch, which, it was a bit of a frustrating because we had reached a part where we were under contract and getting ready to close. And then thank God, everything just fell through the crack, which, it saved us from going into a nightmare situation, which would have been a huge like fixer upper, which right now that's not what we needed with our family and the small kids. So like I said, Sharice has been a godsend. I always refer to her as our angel because, her mom actually helped my parents get into their house also. So it's kind of been this whole, Callender Scott Creppy relationship that, has been successful so far. So if the wheel's not broke, don't fix it. So.
All right. Well, thank you for that introduction, Kevin. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And Harvey, Antonia, do you want to share a little bit?
Yeah, this is me and my wife, and we have a 1-year-old daughter named Zoe. She was born last year, and we
Congrats.
Thanks.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Yeah, and we've had a great experience with Sharice. Before her, we've been in the the renting apartment phase, and we've lived with my parents phase, and kind of all those different phases as most people do due to situations. And we're just glad we were able to find a home. You know, the coronavirus kind of put a wrinkle in a lot of different things in terms of, you know, like finding the, you know, the loan officers and the realtors and being able to view houses, that kind of thing. So it was very stressful. But yeah, we really enjoyed the process. Sharice, she's been great. And just like you, it's funny you said that because her mother actually helped my parents find their home as well, and some of my parents' friends as well. So she came highly recommended, and we like that kind of in the family feel. And it doesn't, I mean, it's not that big a deal. And, you know, you can pick who you want, but we did like having a Black realtor as well. I mean, that's not all the end all be all, but that kind of was very nice as well. So.
No, I can agree to that because again, I'm always about, you know, familiarity and, you know, go with what you know. So when, you know, some of these realtors, they may come along and act like they care, but really don't actually have your best interest at heart. So
Yeah,
I get it.
Well, it's interesting having worked with both of you and the timing. Harvey, you mentioned about the coronavirus, and Kevin, I think we were closing just as things were starting to shut down. So it's just interesting the dynamic of time and availability and how it can shift the market, right? So, you know, when you first start looking for the home, I think both of you kind of had a general idea of where you want it to be, right? Location wise. You're kind of fixed in on, I like this area, I think that's where I want to go. But let's talk about how that may have shifted from one point to the other and why those shifts took place and how you feel about the decisions you made.
First, we had to get pre-approved, and we ended up, I'm a teacher, by the way, so we ended up finding a lender through that way. And then after that, we had to decide where we want to buy our actual house. And me, I didn't mind going, like, I'm new to Maryland, so I didn't mind like going close to my job, which is in Glen Burnie, in Anne Arundel County, or in PG County, but he wanted to stay in PG County. So at first we were like looking all over the place by ourselves. Thank God we found Sharice. But we were looking all over the place, and he strictly just wanted to stay in Bowie because that's where his family is, that's where he grew up, that's where he was familiar with. Like, you like the familiarity thing. So, and I was like, I didn't mind going out, whatever. So right now our house that we bought is in Crofton, and it's not too far from Bowie, and it's not too far from my job. However, the whole COVID thing kind of lessened our search of where we can choose where we want to live anyway. So it was a blessing and a curse at the same time, because it helped us like not be so, well, I want to go here and he wants to go there. It's like, well, this is all we can get, so we're gonna have to choose from what we can get, right? So that's how we pretty much ended up with the house that we have, and we loved it. You know, it turned out perfect.
Yeah, so I can kind of go along the, you know, so my family is from the Montgomery County area. Grew up there, lived there for pretty much the bulk of my life, besides when I went to school. So that was my comfort zone. All of my family was there, friends are there, you know. I was just like, it's a good school there, you know, with the kids and everything. It was just, you know, to me, it was like a good decision to set up shop, because we wanted the kids to be in a good county where the education system is, you know, going to be great, and they'll you know, be able to have the best experience. But as you know, Montgomery County is very expensive. To live there, their houses, I mean, what you can get, let's just say in like Anne Arundel County, Howard County, you'll get more bang for your buck, you know, versus staying out there. So that's kind of where our priorities kind of shifted, where we were looking like, okay, I mean, are we really that fixated on Montgomery County? So my wife, her family is actually in Baltimore. So, you know, we kind of, you know, she was like, look, we can move further out and it'll still be okay. So we ended up setting up in Columbia, which is, again, in between Montgomery, 20 minutes to Montgomery County, Silver Spring, 20 minutes to Baltimore, in between my parents, her parents. So it just worked, you know, the best for everyone, where it was kind of like, I'm fine with Columbia. It's a great area. You know, it's very convenient, and that's my main thing. I'm a big convenience person. Like, I don't want to have to drive 20 minutes down the road just to, you know, get some groceries and stuff. You know, so it all just worked out perfectly. And again, none of this would have been possible without Sharice, because She was very patient with me, especially, and she will tell you I was that nervous. Like, I'm just ready to get through this process. Every week was a different hurdle to get over, so again, it can be nerve-wracking, but again, having a good realtor, somebody who can relate and keep you just, calm and steady through the process was very important for me.
I have to say that's one of my favorite parts is kind of expanding people's horizons because I get it, the kids are in school in a certain place or your parents are in a certain area. And sometimes just knowing the buyer's story, right, can help me to say, okay, well, maybe there's this city you haven't thought about yet. There's places like Odenton and Arnold, like nobody really thinks about those unless you're from those areas. And when you put them on the map, you're like, oh, it's just like 5 minutes from, 10 minutes from here. And it's just like a whole new world. So I think a lot of times buyers are guilty of that, not in a bad way, but just kind of having your mind set on this is the only place that I want to be for XYZ reason. And sometimes we can find it, but there are other things that come into play, be it cost. Maybe it's cost prohibitive to be in that area, or maybe the style of home. Sometimes there are certain homes built in certain areas because that's the dynamic and the architectural culture of that community. So if you're looking for, a 3-level with a garage that's close to amenities, like that just might not be the nature of that particular community. So you'll be spinning your wheels looking for something that may not exist in that area. So, being open to learning the dynamics of different areas and being sure to share your full story with your realtor, because I think this happened for both of you. Actually, we kind of looked outside the scope of a certain area, but still within proximity, right? And then Antonia, when we found Crofton, you're like, oh, well, I work right in Glen Burnie. I was like, what? I'm like, okay, well, this is ideal for both of you. And then Kevin, the same thing. You're like, well, yeah, Tavia's parents are actually in Baltimore. And we were only focused just like on the one side of the story. So, just kind of making sure that you're taking into account your full scope and full picture. And so kind of hanging on that topic for a minute, let's talk about planning, right? Because I think we both kind of had those conversations. You're both first-time home buyers, right? And even though Antonio I know Harvey, you're from here. Antonio, you're new to Maryland. Kevin, you've been here, but first-time home buyers, we also had conversations about kind of what your long-term plans are, right? And looking at that house of, okay, hey, in this first phase that I'm going, do I need to make this purchase be the house that I'm going to be in forever? Or am I looking at the house that I'm going to be in for 5 years while these babies grow? And then, we know what we're planning, future-wise in terms of job and career, and we can kind of foresee what our plans are for ourselves. And being able to buy as a first-time home buyer at a price point where, okay, in our life planning, we want to be able to either hold on to this as an investment and rent it out when we buy our next home, or have something that's going to build some equity and we can, it's manageable and we can plan for that next stage of life in another, 5 to 10 years. So do either of you want to kind of share what your thoughts were in thinking the long term?
I can take that because I know with me, initially, I came into this house buying process with I'm only going for single family. I don't want townhouse. I kind of got scarred by the whole apartment, having somebody next to me, above, below. I didn't want anybody anywhere close to me. So I said, I just want to go single family where I have my house and I have my space. And, that mindset, it limited, our options because again, if you're cutting out like townhouses, for instance, you're cutting out, we were 3 kids and, so it's 5 of us. So I'm like, a condo really wouldn't do it because that reminded me too much of the apartment. So, but when I opened up my mindset to a townhouse and to thinking, okay, well, this doesn't have to be the house that we're going to set up shop and it can just be the first house, a starter house, right now, our talks have been, okay, we're going to stay here for 5 to 7 years. 10 being the absolute most, but I think that with what we're planning right now in terms of renovations to the house, You know, I said 5 to 7 years is a good enough time frame for us to do just enough fixing up in here, where if we wanted to sell, we'd at least get back what we paid for this, maybe a little bit more. Or if we decide just to rent it out, then this will be a, you know, it's a very, like I said, convenient location for any first, like a small family where, you know, you're looking at schools, grocery. I mean, there's a grocery store walking distance here. So, you know, if you don't have a car, so this would be a great rental property at the end of the day. So I think that when I started thinking about those type of things, and it kind of was like, okay, this isn't as bad. And, you know, I just had, my perception just changed a lot when I thought about it like that.
Yeah, I think my perception at first was like you. I wanted a single family house. He kind of didn't care, townhome, condo, single family. But then as time went on, I was like, well, you know what? Your first house is not always the house that you're going to have forever. And so when I started changing my mindset and started looking into other things, I was like, okay, this can be okay. Right now we have a townhouse, and we decided actually long term that we want to keep it, but rent it out and possibly even give it to one of our kids. Right now we only have one, but you know, when we have more in the future, we could probably give it to one of their kids so they can start off, you know, a little bit better. One thing we would say is we don't really like the condo fees or the HOA fees. But again, this is just something that we can try avoiding in the future.
I think that what you mentioned about, you know, leaving, making sure, like, for instance, your child has somewhere, that's one thing that with me right now, I'm huge on, because I don't want my kids to have to go into an apartment. You know, if I can, you know, buy enough, you know, if I got to get a townhouse here, a townhouse there, but at least they have one place where they can all say, okay, look, if until you are ready to go out on your own, you have some place that you can call home where you don't have to go put money into somebody else's pocket, you know. You can pay me if you want to, but I'm not going to. You know, but that is a very valid point, though.
Yeah, I think that speaks to legacy, and it's interesting because I think, and we can all say this about our parents, right? You know, they may have gone through stages, but you know, there was a time where houses weren't as expensive, right, as they are right now. The cost of living wasn't expensive. I think my mom was telling me the other day, their first single family home in Lewisdale was like $87,000. It was like some ridiculous amount for a 3-bedroom brick single family with the yard in the community. You know, it's like, now single family now you're like minimum, you know, 300, depending on the location, right?
At least 300 almost.
Yeah. So, you know, it just kind of speaks volumes to kind of what the mindset was then and what the mindset is now. And I think it's important and encouraging what you all are saying in terms of wanting to have something to leave to your children and setting them up, you know, and having them kind of learn how to proceed with that legacy, right? So let's talk about the process. After we kind of got through, okay, we can look at this location, or okay, we can look at this type of home, which is, you know, still a good option. When we look at square footage, right? We're like, okay, well, this property that's a fixer-upper single family that I'm going to have to spend this much money trying to fix up is still giving me the same type of square footage as, you know, this ready to go, move in, you know, townhome. Can I live with that type of thing? We talk about the financing piece and how that process went for each of you. Your stories are very different. I think the audience would find it interesting. So share what you're comfortable with in terms of that process.
Okay, so for us, it was more so, we know that we have debt to still pay off. So we wanted to find something that wasn't at the highest end of what we got pre-approved for, but something that we were comfortable to pay monthly, as well as live our lives. We wanted to travel besides paying off debt. So that's what we went into it. That was our number one goal when deciding to choose which house to take. You have anything to add to that?
Yeah, that was the biggest thing. I think the biggest thing that, you know, we all focus on is, you know, one of the first things that I'm sure we all look at is, okay, you know, what's the mortgage, or how much do we have to pay? Like, that's what it boils down to, you know, that type of thing. And we had a number in mind that we wanted to not go past. And that's where the whole the process. That's why you need to, in my opinion, have a good, a good loan officer to keep in communication, is also a good real estate agent like Sharice to kind of help balance it, because, I'm no mathematician, I don't know everything about the taxes and the HOA fees and, how this house can be the same price as this house, but this mortgage is higher because of, whatever factors type of thing. So it was just a lot, but you have to keep in constant communication with all parties involved, which can be hectic because everybody has different schedules. Some people respond quicker than others, just so many factors, but just got to go in with an open mind and just definitely keep the lines of communication open, in my opinion.
I want to add to that, because at first with our loan officer, she's great, by the way, but she would tell us, this is how you calculate what you can get for monthly. And I'm just like, well, this process is already stressful. So like giving us more to do is not going to be any better. So being open and telling your loan officer, like, look, if you do this and just tell us this one thing, that'll be great, so that I don't have to keep, we would have conversations like, well, is this right? I don't want to keep wondering, is this right? Like, just give it to me straight. I don't want to have to, do all that on my own. Math was never my strong point. So don't give me extra stuff to do. And then, the interest rates keep going up and down too. So I understand that, but yeah.
So my story, God almighty, even thinking about it, my palms started to get sweaty again. It was because, again, I came into, before I met you, or Sharice came into the picture, I was with this horrible loan officer. I'm not going to put his name out there, but he was just horrible. And Sharice had the pleasure of, when we first started, she connected and she was like, I don't know about this guy, So anyways, he would tell us things, and things he would tell us were not accurate. He had us thinking we could afford a house that was this much when really we should have been looking like here,
Mm-hmm.
And my main thing was, again, I knew what we were paying when we were paying rent, so I knew what we could afford. So I just kind of told him, said, look, as long as it is underneath this figure here, we're good to go. We can afford it because we've been doing it for so long. And then Sharice introduced us to Shervin. And Shervin, again, another godsend. This guy is amazing, but when I get to the end of my story, you'll understand why him and I have a little beef, because he almost gave me a heart attack. But so Shervin was amazing. I mean, he came in there, he asked for all the information. Just saying, pretty much as long as you can provide me these documents and all of this stuff, he said, we'll get through the finish line. So that was just reassuring, hearing that, that, okay, all I have to do is provide this documents that he's requesting, and then, it'll get us into our house, because this was like, hey, if things don't work out this time, and I'll be very open with you guys. My wife was like, look, if we can't get a house right now, then I'm going to go stay with my mom. You can go stay with your dad, and we'll figure out a way to make it work. So, it had just gotten to that point where we were she wanted stability. And I, as the man in the relationship, I needed to provide that. So, again, Shervin asked for all the documentation. It changed a lot during the process. And this is when I would call Sharice. I'd be on my lunch break at work, and I'd pick up the phone, and I'd be like, Sharice, he's asking for this. And Sharice would say, just breathe. It's okay. Just give him what he's asking for. And the sooner you can get it to him, the sooner we can get to closing. And, it was just, of course, along the way, there were other hurdles, but, that's just comes with the territory. At the end of our process, I'm at my parents' house, and I get a call from Shervin, because I just given him everything that he asked for. So I was just waiting on his call all day, and he picked up the phone and he goes, Mr. Kreppy. I say, hey, Shervin, how's it going? Yeah, well, it's going. I said, okay. He said, well, yeah. At this point, mind you, I'm on my bed right now, just like waiting to hear it. He says, well, we tried everything that we could do, and we kind of reached the end of the line here. And I just put my head into the pillow, and I'm about to just like scream, like, you got to be kidding me here. Of course, some other words would have come out, but I'm keeping it to you. Right? So Shervin goes, yeah, we hit the end of the road, and he's like, no, I'm just messing with you. You're good. You got to prove. I said, I told him, I said, come on, man. Why do you have to play with me? But that's just his sense of humor. And again, it just made it that much more satisfying once we got to the table and signed those documents. And I looked at Sharice, and again, I kept my excitement down so much. My wife, she goes, uh-oh. okay, my daughter has just found a way into the room. You know, my wife
Okay, I'm
goes,
surprised mine
she,
hasn't
yeah,
done
yeah,
that
yeah.
yet.
Okay, Janelle, 1 second. You know, she was just like, great job, and it was just a relieving feeling. So, again, I think having a great loan officer is very key into the process, just to make sure that, you know, keeps your stress level down a lot.
Yeah, I do want to say that we also did get help from the state.
Okay.
So we had, like, Harvey would send in documents that they would ask for, and then they'll ask for more things. And we're like, wait a second, we just send that information. So why do we have to keep resending the same things? Oh, well, you know, this person needs that and this person needs that, but we just sent that like a month ago or 3 weeks ago. And it's like, okay, our closing date was supposed to be this time.
Yeah.
And you're still asking for something that we just gave. We felt like we just sent it like 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
So yeah, I remember that whole document thing was just like, are you kidding me? The state probably needed one thing, and I don't know, she lost, you know, one part of our paperwork, but we gave her the same paperwork like 3 weeks ago.
That was a dark point. Just, you know, I think, yeah, just that I don't know what the worst part was, but just the whole, because just like she said, for our end, it was so many parties involved. It was Sharice, it was us, it was the seller, it was the seller's agent, it was the state, it was my loan officer, it was coronavirus, it was just everything. So nobody's in the office. So like literally just keeping everybody in the same chain. Like, and Sharice will tell you, like, literally up until the actual day that we closed, we were still having back and forths with everybody the same morning that I closed. So,
oh my God.
but we got there, but I still have nightmares thinking about it.
Yeah.
I always tell people that finance piece is like, I call them the finance police, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like combing through every single thing, trying to make sure there's no loopholes whatsoever in anything, because they don't want this loan to go into default. Okay. 2, they don't want any unofficial funds, you know, trickling in. And so they have a really high level of due diligence that they have to meet. And then often both of you all, even though the gates you didn't close with Shervin, you closed with a loan officer who was still affiliated with Fitzgerald Financial, which is the same loan company that Shervin works with. And so that level of communication, it's different. It's not the same for every loan officer. So even though I'm always shouting, go Shervin, because I trust him, because I know he's solid and I know he'll get the job done. If he tells me that you're pre-approved and we can make this happen, then I believe that. And no matter what hurdle comes up, I'm like, okay, let's strategize. What do we need to do to get over that hurdle? But that doesn't mean he's the only loan officer, right? But if the buyer is not getting that level of communication that you all are talking about, you know, Antonio, like, can you just do the numbers and tell me what I need? You got me over here calculating stuff and figures. I don't even know what I'm doing. You know, you don't want to have that. You want to be able to kind of go into the process with, okay, we found the house that we want to buy. Can you run these numbers and tell us, Harvey, you mentioned it, what's the mortgage? Like, how much am I paying a month? That's what I want to know. And okay, how does all these other things factor in? I don't want any surprises at the table. And how much money do I need at the end of the day to make sure I can close successfully on the loan? Those are the key numbers that you guys, you know, as consumers are looking for at the end of the day. And if you can't get those numbers, or you can't get that communication very easily from your loan officer early on in the process, it's going to probably be a hard road going through the loan process. So making sure that you have a loan officer that you're comfortable with, and a loan officer that you know your realtor can effectively communicate with, that's something that's important in the process. You definitely want to make sure that you have it, make your life a lot easier.
And I think another thing that's very important for first-time home buyers to know, which we didn't know until later on, and thank God we were already doing, was to save up like a certain amount so that they can see that you have a certain amount in your bank account before they approve you at the end. And we're like, well, thank God we were already doing that, because we didn't find that out from our loan officer until like something.
Yeah, what was that called? Yeah, it's the money you're supposed to have along with your closing number. I forgot what it's called.
Yeah, I forgot the name of it.
We just
But
call
they
it
need to see that you have like a certain amount in your bank or something like that. I forgot what
Oh
it's called.
yeah, I know
we
what
call
you
it your cash to close.
mean.
Your cash
Yeah.
to close at the bottom line. And it's like a percentage of that depending on the type of loan you have. If you have an FHA loan, then 3.5% of that purchase price is how much you're going to have to put down. But then there's still all the closing cost expenses that you're going to have as well, to pay your title fees, to pay your lender fees, and all these other fees that come up. The buyer doesn't pay the agent. That money comes from the seller in the sale of the property. But
Sorry, Zoe's crying.
and Zaria found her way in here. I think all
There
our
you go.
kids are just like,
Hey, listen,
okay,
we have
time's
resourceful
up.
kids, okay?
You guys have talked enough.
Yeah.
So we have the guys on the line here. So why don't we just share for a minute that process?
The main thing with that, was just again ensuring that we had funds put away. I mean, originally we started off thinking that both of us were going to be on this loan, and then due to circumstances, it just ended up everything falling on me. So that way we can get approved and everything. My credit was a little bit better, so loan officer said, well, let's just go with you, and that way at least in the event that we are looking to say get another house, it's not on my wife's credit. Everything's on my credit right now. So, I mean, that actually was a blessing in disguise, because now let's just say we want to keep this and still apply for another house. My wife's credit has been building since we've gotten into the house. So it's like, if she, says, okay, well, look, Kev, we can keep this house, but I'm ready to go out and try to go buy a house also. Then it's like, okay, well, look, we're still working together. We can still get the cash together to go and do this purchase, but it won't have to be in my name. It'll just be in her name. So therefore now, a lot of times, I had one of my friends actually I was talking to, and they were like, yeah, when we were going through the process, our loan officer told us that we should both be on here. And I'm sure due to their financial situation is why they were told that. But my thing was this, I was just like, great. I mean, if we want to get another house, it doesn't have to be, okay, you have to run my credit. Like, no, just put it on my wife's credit. Here's the cash. We have a shared account, so all the money is still the same. But again, it was a huge responsibility. Just one, knowing that everything is on me, just kind of add a little bit more pressure on me. But, again, I did great breathing exercises daily. Okay. I went for long walks during lunch breaks. And I just prayed, and I said, you know what? If this is meant to be, it will happen. There will not be anything stopping this. If it doesn't work out, it's a reason why it didn't work out, and it's for the best. That's kind of just how I live my life. So, just applying those principles, it helped me out a lot.
Yeah, and that was the same for us. When you were gone, she had mentioned just about the whole like man of the house type thing, just the guy's perspective. And we're in the same boat as you, whereas in my loan officer recommended that my name just be on the house. Just my credit was a little better at the time and a little less debt to income ratio. So we went with that as well. But just like the same scenario that you said, if you do want to do something else in the future, it's great that she's not going to be tied, to this one as well. So that might be a better flexible situation. But it was something that just has been kind of very stressful, just because, as I've said numerous times, with the coronavirus thing and just, being a man of the household, you want to provide, a nice house. We've been there, the whole renting, leasing, landlords, all that stuff, living with family members, this and that. Like, no, we have a daughter now. We just need our own space. So it's time, that type of thing. So I was just, really excited to just do everything that I can, to first get pre-approved. You got to, get rid of some of that debt, get your credit score up, show them, that you're responsible enough to get pre-approved type thing. And then when the virus hit, I think some places actually, whatever credit score that they required for loan or to get pre-approved, it differed because of the coronavirus, because them thinking people might not be able to keep their loans and pay their bills and might lose their jobs type thing. So it was just kind of a lot going on, but we stayed with it, and we got we got the house and all that. But yeah, just as a man of the house, you definitely want to provide for your family and just have a space that's yours. Nobody wants to live with family members if it's unavoidable, or have to deal with landlords not responding and fixing stuff and, this and that. So
yeah, but I would say that it was a blessing in disguise because, I mean, just knowing me, I like the lavish things in life. And I'm the
Nothing wrong
shopper.
with
He's like,
that.
I'm the shopper. He's more of like the reserve, like, do we really need that? And I'm like, yes. I mean, not every shoe goes with every outfit,
Yeah.
But if it didn't take into account where because my student loans was the determining factor where she was like, nope, can't be on it. My student loans were too much. So if they didn't take that into account and they were like, oh yeah, we can use both of your incomes and both of your credits or whatever, then who knows? We probably would have got a house that was probably way more than we needed.
right.
And so I'm glad that it didn't work out that way. And in the future, we can either both put our names on the house or just me put my name on a separate house or whatever the case may be.
Correct. Absolutely
But
right.
at the end of the day, we're married, so it's still both of ours and it's still our kids. So
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to strategy, right? And just, being able to kind of think outside that immediate moment and at the end of the day, what your short-term goal is right now and what your long-term goal is. And I do like to kind of take the time, with the buyers to like pump the brakes a little bit and think about those things because it's easy not to. Because I think we're not really trained to think about it that way. You just kind of know, okay, it's time for us to buy a house. And I love that you guys are, being honest and transparent because that's so many people's situation. But a lot of times nobody really shares that perspective. So it looks like, oh yeah, they got a house. So why can't we get a house? And it's just like, you don't know the story, right? You don't know what it took to get this person to where they are. So it's like, you have to be able to respect the process. And just kind of understand that things don't necessarily happen overnight, that there are steps that you have to take. Harvey, I love how you said, when you get that pre-approval, it's like you show that you can be responsible, right? And getting your credit score up. Because there are other channels, right? There are people that come with credit scores, in the high 5s and people who've got credit scores in the high 7s and 8s. And they can both buy a home, right? But it depends on who that loan officer is. It might determine what their interest rate might be. There are people who have cash in reserve, and there are people that don't have any cash in reserve at all. That doesn't mean they can't buy a home. It just means that their strategy is going to look a little different in terms of how they meet their goal. So I'm excited to share these stories with the public because I just feel like people just kind of see, I was looking for a house. Some people say, oh, it took me a year to find a house. I'm like, it didn't take you a year to find a house. It didn't take you a year to find a house. It took you a year to really be prepared to take the next step in the process, right? And whether that was you needed to get some credit together, whether that means you wanted to, save up some additional cash because you got that upfront, money that you got to come up with, your home inspection, your appraisal fees, all of that stuff, that just starts coming out. I have a client now, she's got a well inspection, a radon inspection, a lot of different inspections that everybody doesn't necessarily have to see. So I think the one size fits all model is one that we want to discourage, right?
Yeah,
and we just want to encourage, like, everybody has their story and their process can be similar because you have to get approved first, right? You have to come to grips with, okay, where do I really want to be? Is there any compromise? Is it a compromise, or does this just make sense for where we want to go? And then go through the finance police process. Because I think you both of your families, can agree it's not the easiest thing, but if you just take it as it comes and you just like, don't worry about that, I gave you this before, just have it ready. Okay, anything you want. Yep, give me that approval at the end of the day. We're good, okay?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so
Sharice, I want to add one thing, which, I just thought about, because I know initially when we first started, I was very bent on the whole Montgomery County location. And I mean, more so is because I work in D.C., so I was looking at commute, and now I'm in Columbia, but guess what? I work from home every day. So it's like that whole thinking of trying to find some place that was convenient for work. I mean, if I had just thought about, okay, let me go to my job and just say, hey, look, what telework options are available? What remote, work options are available? Also, that would have completely changed where I was looking, because it wouldn't matter. I would go wherever I can get the most bang for my buck. So that's just something I would advise to anybody right now currently looking, just to think about those options. You don't have to think about physically going to work, because nobody should be physically going to work probably for the next year, at the earliest. So that's just, another thing I thought about.
That's good food for thought. Absolutely. So the title process, we talked about looking for the property. We talk about the lending process. A lot of people don't really talk that much about title. They're kind of like the quiet force in the back, but they're the ones who are transferring all the money back and forth. They're making sure that your title is clear. They get all your business, to make sure that the deed gets recorded. Did you guys have any thoughts or insight you wanted to share about how that process went with the title company?
More so with me, it was just all about when they ask for stuff, just give it to them, and make it to the finish line. That was it. That was my mindset going through that process. Was just like, you want something, here it is. That same day, I would stop what I was doing at work. I would go, if I needed to print and scan and send it in, I would do whatever I had to do, because I'm just like, I was over it, to be honest,
Well, the gates aren't speaking up. I'm going to share a little bit about your title process. You may not remember, but when new title was being cleared, the seller actually had some financial lien, right, on their title. And so you want to say hi? Say hi. Sorry, with her
we
paper.
can't go to Grandma and Papa's. It's because
this
Daddy,
is my real life right here.
we can't go to Grandma and Papa's is because Daddy is taking the black car and the blue car is not here, so we can't go until he comes back.
Okay, well, we'll work it out. Thanks for the update.
Back to you, Sharice. It's like I'm watching the news right now.
Regularly scheduled programming.
Right.
I'll tell you. But yeah, so the seller actually ended up having some liens and some other, title issues that came up. And I think we ended up having to extend your closing date a week or two as a result.
Wow.
You remember? And that was stressful.
Like, why can't this be resolved in like 3 days? It's
I remember we're like, yes, we have like 3 more days, and we're just counting down to the closing date. And I'm like, when we heard the news, we were like, are you kidding me? This is how we can get that fixed.
Right, like where was that the past 2-3 months?
Oh, right.
Wow.
Yeah. Everything happens at its time, I guess.
And just like what he said about, I think I got to the point as well. At some point, I'm just like, listen, my main mindset is just 2 things. Whenever they ask for something, give it to them. And 2, always CC Sharice in the email, because I know that if I don't want to deal with it, I can just say, here's what they said, Sharice.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
That's right.
Take care of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
All right, well, any final thoughts or words of encouragement or anything that you all want to share with the audience before we kind of sign off here?
Just be patient. Don't think that it's always going to go one way, because it can go in many different directions, and be open-minded. Don't get too stressed out because it is a stressful process, and everything will work out when it's supposed to. Don't try to rush it either.
Right. And from my perspective, just to make sure that when you're looking to buy a home, just try to do as much research as you can, communicate with, your realtor, loan officer, just stay in communication. So that way, when stuff pops up, you're not shocked. You can try to, not saying you have to be experts, but that HOA fees are there and taxes are here and different things that affect different things, but also,
sorry. Go ahead.
Hold on one second.
She turned on the TV. I'm sorry.
Oh,
it's okay. This is real life.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're on the phone talking about, yes, and the loan officer said this. Oh, is that the baby crying? Okay, yeah. I mean, it's real. Like,
But yeah, and then the last thing, just make sure that you have a realtor that you feel comfortable with. I don't even know if we ever told Sharice that, but we did have a realtor before her. We just never brought it up just because we didn't want it to, whatever. But it didn't end well. It wasn't the right person for us. Didn't seem like he really cared, and this, and that, which is why we switched. But just make sure you have a realtor that you feel comfortable with, you can communicate with, that you don't feel like is pressuring you, and that it has the line of communications open with you, and just is very transparent, and, just make sure you have a good realtor, bottom line.
Yeah, and he was very good with keeping on top of things, which is sometimes what you got to do, because we need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Sharice was very good at keeping us in the know, which is good, but then not all parties was good at that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We would have to sometimes be on top of the loan, the loan specialist or whatever. We would sometimes have to be on top of our old realtor, or just being on top of and keeping that open communication, like he said, is very, very important with getting things going.
Yeah. I think from my standpoint is kind of what I've been telling my friends since we got our house. One, like you all said, make sure you have a great realtor, somebody who has your best interest at heart. Have a good loan officer, somebody who's transparent and will keep it real, not just sell you. I always say sell you dreams, like, oh yeah, you can afford this $500,000 house, when really you should be looking at like three to 250 to 300,000, realistically, So that was just my biggest thing is just, find people who keep it real. Don't find anybody who's just going to tell you what you want to hear to get your hopes up to get, so you get let down.
To get their money.
Yeah, and just be prepared. You have to be prepared. Have some money put away. You should at least start saving up. Don't wait until you start looking for your house to start saving. Like, save up at least, I'd say a year, 2 years, however long you need, to have at least, I always say, well, I was told at least have like 10, at least minimum 10 or 5 to 10, whatever you're able to afford, have it put aside. And, if you have family who's able to help, reach out. Don't be afraid to say, hey, look, I need help. Whatever you need to do to get into your house, do it.
Right.
That's legal. Let me rephrase that. Okay. Whatever legally you need to do to get into your house, do that. Okay. Because once you have it, that's yours. And that's, again, that's your legacy. That's equity. That's a tax write-off. It's an umbrella for you. So there's so many benefits, and at the end, and you're putting money back into your pocket, not somebody else's. So, you can do it. I did it. We all did it. So, do not fear, just pray, and everything will work its way out.
Yeah, and I do want to add that that money part is very important. Like, you should be, when you're thinking about getting a house, you should be doing that anyway. But the second you get pre-approved, just start saving, because you're gonna need money for down payment. Also, when you move in the house,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Right, furniture
And all that. You don't think everyone thinks about saving money for the actual house, but then once you get the house, you gotta have stuff to put in the house.
Right.
And take care of the house, because things happen.
Yep, that's right.
Right, I was like, please don't buy any furniture
yeah,
until we get to closing. I'm gonna need you to have no new debt, so you don't get to the end and Sherwin or whoever runs your credit, and they're like, oh, they bought a whole dining room set for $5,000. They don't qualify anymore. That, you don't want that to happen. So
I was definitely online shopping and just keeping everything in the shopping cart.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we officially got approved, I was like, yes, I can start actually putting the cart in.
We asked her, she's like, okay, I think you can start getting stuff now. She's like, yeah. Okay.
No, but that's great food for thought. And I, appreciate both of your families very much. I'm super excited for you and your futures. We could definitely say, hey, we're carrying on, the legacy in terms of my affiliation with my mom and your parents' affiliation with my mom and us with you. Look, that's the next generation coming up.
That's right.
Hi, Zoe. Right, and Zoe was still crawling. I think she took her first real steps in there. She's walking full steam now, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been fun. And again, like I said, really appreciate you guys being on today, sharing your stories. I think people will learn a lot from just hearing everything that you shared, and gleaning from it and kind of using that as real life guidance. These are 2020 first time home buyers who have gone through the process and successfully achieved their goals. So really proud of you all. Be sure to share with all your friends and everything, because you are a great example, and your mindset of wanting to have something to leave for your family is one that in these times we definitely need to be setting our children up to understand that this is what we're doing as parents. My daughter's running around here. I let her come and sit because I'm like, you need to know I'm doing this. I'm doing this because it's setting us up, for the future, and you're a part of the future, not just, hey, we're going to work because we don't want to be here. We're going to work because we want to be able to provide homes for our families and take care of our communities and all that good stuff. So I appreciate you guys.
Oh, thank you very much, Sharice, for having us.
Thank you so much, and it was nice to meet you too, man.
Yeah, same here.
Let's face it, the road to home ownership, it's not one you'll want to travel alone. The knowledge and experience you're looking for, whether you're buying, selling, or renting, it's not all available online. With professionals like D.C.A. Realtors behind you, we'll strategize and help map out your best route to ensure your goal of just sold. Serving you is our #1 priority. With 40 years in the business, experience really does make the difference. Subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel and visit us online at DCARealtors.com. Stay connected and let us be your go-to resource for all your real estate needs. We're here for you.